Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Sorry for the delay here. I want to welcome everyone to today's Insight webinar, where today we'll be talking about ViewerXpress, and we'll be talking about what ViewerXpress is, why you'd want to use it, who you would use it for, and then the features, the different features that ViewerXpress brings to the table, such as different navigation features, reports, and views, being able to display different types of reports and views. We'll talk about this concept of a control, and then we'll talk about how you could feasibly export these reports and views into the different exports that are available. ViewerXpress, so what is it basically, and how is it different than Viewer? Well, it's definitely a separate application. It's a separate website than Viewer. And so, the users would definitely be getting, a different application, a separate website. It really lends itself to casual access. So essentially, it's a very stripped down, easier, way to access the viewer data or any other types of data for that matter. So, if you really want to roll something out that's real easy, has very easy ways of getting to the reports and views, and navigation is very minimal, well, then this is something that you might be highly interested in. It also works well when it's highly focused, because it does require some setup. It requires that these controls, which we'll talk about in a minute, need to be set up accordingly so that the filters are relevant for the reports that you want to display. We've already got this up and running at a couple of different sites, and normally it's with these sites, specifically one in particular, there's a very high focus in terms of what they do with this. And so just like with dashboarding or any other type of best practice, typically with a project, the focus there has to be a clear definition of what it is that you're trying to accomplish here. Another nice thing that ViewerXpress brings to the table is minimal training. I mean, it really is, point and click. It's pretty intuitive in terms of what you need to do to display a report and how to manipulate the report. In terms of a view, I mean, if you're accessing a view within ViewerXpress, because you have the ability of accessing views and reporting services reports, the views behave the same way, and the drilling and the features that are available are essentially the same. Really kind of allows you to extend viewer and your Stratum data even further into maybe multitudes of users, masses of consumers of data. And it leverages, certainly allows you to leverage the data that you're storing within Stratum. So certainly, that's something that, is obviously there for you, and this really allows you to extend that even further. Another thing to think about here is, do you want to provide data or report on any other type of data that may or may not be within Stratum? Okay, so now we're talking about feasibly, having a report, a custom report set up that you could have, set up so that it might be reporting against a different database, maybe a table on the SQL server or within your iSeries. It's up to you in terms of how you want to shape this out and how customizable you want to make this. And so you do have this concept of obviously not only getting reports and data from your Stratum environment, but also being able to get it and leverage data from other types of environments as well, and other databases if you need to, if that's part of your requirement. Why would you use ViewerXpress? Well, essentially, it really does lend itself to very easy-to-use features. So if you have users out there that are somewhat challenged or intimidated by even Viewer, for that matter, this really kind of eases them into, analysis, eases them into accessing reports and views, and is, I think, much less intimidating than the Viewer interface in terms of, there's not a lot of features and whatnot thrown at them here. It's very attractive. I mean, in terms of filtering the data, it's got a really nice interface. It's very easy to navigate. It makes sense. It's very, just from the surface level, it's very intuitive. So that lends itself nicely to user, multitudes of users, users that may not be technically inclined as much. Maybe you have some sales reps out there that are more interested about hitting the pavement and meeting their quotas than they are about technology. And so, this is really a great interface for those types of folks. So again, great way to extend Stratum even further, and to really leverage your Stratum investment. It can provide ways to report on many different sources of data. Again, we talked about this, and so if you're looking to extend your reporting to other pieces or other areas of data or databases that you may have out there, this might be a better or a way to do that, and can still provide ways to filter the data if the data is similar, if you have some dimensional commonality. And again, this leverages the analytical views that you may have built within Stratum. Obviously we know that Stratum's data model lends itself nicely to business analytics for manufacturers and distributors. You may have views out there that are already constructed for your vertical in your industry. And so certainly you want to roll that out and take advantage of some of those analytics that you already are taking advantage of within Viewer, and you can extend that. So your analytics are being extended as well. And what about security? I mean, who gets in this thing? Who uses it? How secure is it? And essentially it leverages the same security that Viewer does. So you have the same capability of not allowing certain users to see certain costs. Maybe you want reps to only see their territories without having to build all these different separate reports to lend themselves to the different territories. You still have this concept of viewers coming in or users coming in being filtered on whatever roles that you set up within Viewer. And again, this is as long as they're sourcing the data and you're getting the data from the same database that Viewer does, obviously, the analysis services database. That's where the roles are defined. If you're sourcing data or reporting data from other different types of databases, then obviously the security there would be contingent upon whatever it is that you've set up for that particular database. But it lends itself very nicely for native Windows security, integrated security. So who is this for? Well, definitely is for maybe a set or a subset of your Viewer users. We like to see typically, they have to be Viewer users in order to use Viewer Express at this point. They have to be set up as a Viewer user. This is really good. Again, just talking about how casual of an interface this is, it's great for casual consumers of data. Sales reps typically fall into that fold. So, this lends itself quite nicely for the reps out there. They just want to get in, see where they're at in terms of their number, and move on and go sell some products. It's good for executives. I see this being used by executives at a certain particular site where they just want to go in, and look at the numbers, how these products are being sold within the different markets. And even point of sale data is something that they're getting access to as well. How is this product selling at the store level? And so this allows them to really get nice, clean, and easy access to not only data within Stratum, but also the point of sale data, which is essentially being stored within Stratum as well. They're able to access that very easily. Outside sales brokers, now we have this concept of a broadcast user where a user doesn't necessarily need to be defined within your network as an Active Directory user. So this is something that might be attractive for you to open this up to users outside of your network, such as outside sales brokers. And that's something that feasibly could be set up to do. So in essence, it works well for multitudes of users. If you've got literally 20 or hundreds of users out there that need to get access to this data, this might work well for you with less maintenance and less training. So how do we navigate this thing? Well, we know that this is a separate website, so you're going to have a different URL than you would for Viewer. So, that is what it is. Obviously they would hit a different website. No big deal there. We hit different websites every day. Then once they get onto the site, they'll see they'll have the left frame menu with all the reports and views listed out. And it's collapsible. So if they want to save state or save real estate on their screen, they can collapse this menu as they run the different views and reports. There is this concept of sub-reports as well. So we've done this with another customer where not only do they have customizable reports, but they also have the ability to drill in on that report and go to more detail. And Reporting Services does a really good job with that. Or if you're just using viewer views, obviously that's just a native feature of viewer, this the drilling capability. And that doesn't go away. So when you're using, viewer views within the Viewer Express product, again, the drilling capability is still there. So, and that's what's so nice and attractive about this is that you still have this casual way of drilling through your views as you would as if you were using Viewer. It's the same. Basically, if you're looking at views within Viewer Express, it's the same as basically as using that within Viewer. Don't forget about the controls. Obviously, those are pretty important in terms of navigation. Users typically use these things dynamically to change their filtering, to change the time frames, to change the measure. It all depends on what exactly it is that they want to change within the report. However, really the only way to change the report is to manipulate the controls and to, use the controls to filter what exactly it is that you're looking for. When the controls are manipulated, then you'll use this. You'll click the button Get Report. There's actually a report up, Get Report, a button called Get Report. Normally, when you change a control or any of the filters within those controls, then you would click on Get Report to see the results of that. So what types of reports are available? Well, mostly what we've worked with are Reporting Services reports or SQL Server Reporting Services, which is what SSRS stands for. And why would you use a report versus a view? Well, the report really allows you the ultimate in terms of customization. So if you have different types of formats that maybe viewer is not capable of formatting to, a Reporting Services report certainly probably would be able to handle that. So again, for certain types of reporting formats that may not be available within Viewer, or maybe you want to report data from other sources other than Stratum, Reporting Services would probably be a good approach for that. Normally Reporting Services has the ability to report against any type of data as long as you have authority and security to get into whatever data source or database that you're trying to tap into. So, so that works real well, if you want to just push out data outside, sourcing from outside of any other database other than Stratum. And reports, if we do this right, obviously, then the reports can have the same control filtering capabilities than the view has. And again, it all depends on where you're sourcing the data from. If that data is comparable to the data within Stratum, if that data was outside of Stratum, it would be, we'd have to plan that so that, the controls would work not only with the data within Stratum, but outside of Stratum as well. So that would definitely need to be discussed. If you're just wanting a different report format, but the data is still getting from Stratum, you're still sourcing the data from Stratum, then we know the controls are going to work because really the controls are based on the different dimension levels within the Stratum database. And if you're using viewer views within Viewer Express, it's basically, like I said, it's basically like using Viewer, within the viewer interface itself. You're still going to have the same right-click context menus and features, mostly. You do have the ability, obviously, to hide the file menu, so if you don't want them to access certain things, there's certainly ways to hide some of that. And like I said, the drilling capability is still there. So, that capability is still there. It's the same as if you were using Viewer. So, point, click, drill, obviously it's the same way. Viewer views typically are faster to set up. You have more control over them. You can actually build the view yourself if you'd like and build the series of views that you want to use within this interface. So you'll have more control over this if you were to use viewer views as opposed to custom reporting services reports. And again, viewer security would kick in here, so certain users would only see certain things depending on their security role. And again, you could feasibly set this up so that outside users can come in and access the data as well by using the broadcast user approach. And then there's the controls. You have the ability to use the controls to control your filtering. And that's what the controls are used for. It's primarily for filtering the view or the report that you're currently accessing. The controls are pretty easy to use. Most of them are pull-down selectable menus. So obviously, you point, click to a pull-down, and you select a member on it, and you're off and running. Really nothing too difficult there. Some of the controls are searchable. So if you're looking for a more populated level, typically those would be set up as a searchable control as opposed to a pull-down control. You don't want to pull down a menu that has 1,000 items in it. That's typically not very productive. So some of the controls can be searchable, so that obviously for like ship to, bill to, we have literally thousands of entities there. You'd be able to actually search on a name or a keyword. And then again, here's another thing is that we just added in multi-member selection. So you have actually the capability of not only selecting one specific item from the control list, but multiple items. So if you want to select multiple customers or items or whatever the control represents, then you certainly have the ability to do that. And again, don't forget to click on Get Report, because that's kind of like the running man within Planner if you go back that far. You basically make your selections within the controls, and then you click on the Get Report button, and that actually retrieves the report or the view once the controls have changed or once you've made your selections. And then finally, if you want to do any printing or exporting to Excel, you do have this capability. You'll have buttons in the area to allow you to export the data to an Excel spreadsheet, to a PDF if you'd like, or to a Word document. And this typically is what you'll use to go ahead and print out the reports, if that's what you're looking to do. So there really is no way to print directly from the interface per se, but if you just quickly export it to Excel, you'll see how that works here in a minute when I show you the demonstration. So what does this thing look like? Well, basically here's a screenshot of Stratum Viewer Express. And I'll kind of plot it out the different areas of the Express product. As you can see here on the top are the controls. So this is what we're talking about in terms of controlling the view or the reports based on your selections up here. And as you can see, there's really nothing selected mostly in my dimensional controls. So you have 12 of these dimensional controls that are available: product, ship to, sold to, product class, category, family. These should all look and sound somewhat familiar to you because you're probably using a lot of the similar dimensions: company, division, warehouse. And as you can see, they're all pull-down menus, and then some of them are searchable: product, ship to, sold to. Those are some of them more highly populated levels, and you'll typically use these to search for these entities as opposed to just pointing and clicking to the drop-down menus. Here at the far right, if you're using custom reports, you can have the ability to change time frames. You can use calendar versus fiscal periods. You can change the measure. We can make that real easy to change the measure or the sorting or the top 5 count if there is a top 5 count for that particular report. So you can actually control a lot of things here in terms of what it is, the time range, what measures you want to analyze, can be controlled here by these set of measures here that are more directed towards, what measure, the different time frames that are available, sorting and top counting. Once you make a selection in the controls area, you'd click on Get Report, and then obviously the report would render down in the Report and View area. and that's where you would actually see the results from that report once you make the control selections. And then over here on the left side are your reports and views. So very similar to Viewer is this ability to gain access to obviously the different reports and views that are available, that you want to make available within this product. You would just simply point, click, and then obviously the report or the view would render within the main area. Okay, so let's take a look at this in action. I've actually got the demo here set up so that we can take a look at it. And here it is. So here we can see I've got my demonstration of the Viewer Express product up and running. We can see that right now I'm looking at a top customer report, top customer comparison, and I'm looking at my demonstrational data. This is the same demo data we've been using over the years, and we've been able to go ahead and implement the Viewer Express product over our demonstrational database. So, and you can see with this particular report, we're just doing month-to-date comparisons and year-to-date comparisons. The nice thing about reporting services reports are these indicators or these different features like data bars that you can use that will give you a picture of this year and last year very quickly, where I can see that pretty much everybody is down for this particular database. And you can see that quite clearly. You know, with the status and the data bars, you can see that this year is dismally lower than last year's sales in all these situations, it looks like. And you'll notice that there's a button here for top products, so I can actually pick Wilder Foods per se, and if I click on the top products report, it'll actually take me and filter me on Wilder Foods and then show me their top products. So here we can see Wilder Foods, that's the one I selected, and we were able to drill in on Wilder Foods to what we call a sub-report. So the sub-report then shows me at least more detail about what this particular account is purchasing from me. We can see that Wilder Foods is highlighted here in the title of the report. It's also highlighted up here in the control, Wilder Foods, and it's locked down no less. I can't change it, and that's one thing we can help you with if that's something you want to do, or do you want to make it available so they can change it on the fly here. This is some things that we can talk about that can customize the interface to your liking. That's kind of how this works initially. Do I want to change my measure? Do I want to change my time frame or any of my top, for instance, maybe I want to see their top 20 products as opposed to their top 5 products. So I've changed my top count to a 20, and now if I click on Get Report, it'll then go ahead and render the report again, and it'll show me 20 items as opposed to just the top 5. So here I can see the top 20 items. So, real easy to use. I'm over here, not much to select from. I can't really trip over too much here. If I maybe change the sorting, I can change the sort to ascending or descending. Maybe I want to see net sales instead of gross sales. So now we're talking about changing the actual measure of the report. So if I change this particular report from gross sales to net sales, boom, it's done. So now I'm actually looking at net sales instead of gross sales, and there's my average price based on net sales. Okay. What about my time frame? Do I want to change this on the fly? So if I click on my time frame, I can change it from year to date to month to date to quarter to date, or should I make it custom? What time frames do I want to select? I can actually select a custom time frame. This works real well if your data is daily. If your data is being stored daily, this works out great. Then you really can get quite granular in terms of what it is you're looking for here. Another cool thing is that I can use fiscal versus calendar selections as well. So if I have both fiscal and calendar time periods, then I can actually make those selections too. I'll change this to month to date. And so instead of going year to date all the way to September, this should just be September, the month of September. So So we'll go ahead and rerun this, and we'll see my title here for my month, year-to-date should change to month-to-date. And it should say calendar of September of 2010. Indeed, there it is. So I was able to actually change this to the month-to-date, and looks like the numbers are slightly lower there. So again, you have quite a bit of flexibility here in terms of, changing time, changing the measure, changing the source, or the top count. Any of that's pretty easily done. If I want to go back to my top customer comparison, I can click back on it. And I'm back to my customer comparison report. And we can see that this particular report here, it kind of keeps the settings here. So if I want to, again, pare this back down to 10, make this back to year-to-date instead of month-to-date, I can get back to where I was if I wanted to here. Pretty simple. What about some of these other controls? How can we manipulate the view using some of these other controls here? Maybe I want to just find out some of my top customers for food service versus the grocery division. So if I select just food service alone, then I can go ahead and click on Get Report again. So now I'm actually filtering on one specific division for my food service, and I'm waiting for the report to render just for my food service customers. And here they are. And it is certainly a different list of customers here. So, you have the ability to select one, or if you want to select all values, that's available obviously as well. Maybe you want to select, let me find one with a little more values to them here. We've got different types of regions and classes here. Let's see, what can we do? Here we go. So product category, so based on my product categories, maybe I want to see fresh vegetables and fresh fruit only. So now I'm selecting just two of the different numbers that are available for my product categories. So then I click on Get Report, and now I'm actually filtering on two product categories instead of one. And there you have it. And certainly there's a different list of customers here with olive area distributors coming in on top. And I'm looking at, go back into my selection, and indeed there's my multi-select in action there. I'm able to actually select, not only just one, but two or more, for that matter, of my different product categories. Again, if I want to go back and make them all selected again, I'm back to all values here, back to square one. Pretty simple. So, you guys, as you can see here, it's pretty simple to go in here and do that. Maybe I want to focus on one particular item. How would I do that? Well, I can go into product. So now I'm actually going into one of the controls where it's searchable. Okay? So I'm actually searching now. I have the ability to search on a given product if I wanted to. So if there's a keyword out there that I'm looking for, maybe Apple, then I can go in and have it just search for Apple within the descriptions, and then select, the different products that I want to make available here. And again, I can select more than just one here too. So I'm picking more than just, so I'm picking both my applesauce and my Apple Red Delicious products. I make my selections, I click OK, and I select Get Report. So now I'm filtering this report on two different items or two different SKUs. And Huntington's, Good Foods, Penn Brands, these are the guys that are coming in on top. I even have one that's up this year versus last, go figure. So that's working out quite nicely as well. And indeed it is up this year versus last for my month to date, by 30% no less. Okay. How do I get rid of that? Well, you have these different, for the searchable ones, you have this little X here. So if you click on that and then click on Get Report. So now I'm not filtering on any products at all at this point. So by searching on the more populated levels, you can actually go in and search on them, and you would decide, what levels would be more, relevant here for these types of controls, these searchable controls. Typically, it's going to be product, maybe ship to, sold to, something with a lot of entities that are available. Okay. And so you'd have these different customizable reports if that's what you want to do. It's certainly available. I might have a top product report. I can come in and select a given customer now. So now I'm looking for a specific customer. I can double click on one if I wanted. It makes the selection. So as you can see, you can double click through on some of this. It actually makes the selection for you. So now I'm just looking at Harrington's for this particular report, and it's just going to show me the top items for Harrington's. What does the view look like? So now we're actually going to run a view and see what these look like. If I select Customer Sold To view, I can go ahead and click on that. Instead of a report, I get a viewer view that runs, and this should look familiar. As we can see, it's a viewer view, and I'm filtering on Harrington's, and sure enough, it made that filter for me on Harrington's. And now I can make my essential drill downs as needed. If I want to drill from frozen entree to product, I can see that this particular account is purchasing this combination of families and products from me. I can drill in on the header if I wanted to and see a complete list of what it is, the product families and the products that this particular customer is purchasing. So now I'm actually using a viewer view. Looks, feels the same way. I can right-click on the view. I can sort it or and do some of the same things that I can do within view. And so now that's available here, so I can actually do all the different things. If I want to change the measure, I can go in and edit it. I get the different menus that are available to change the measure to whatever it is that I want to change it to. I can change my time frames by using a lot of the native viewer menus that are available. So, so now you're actually within the world of viewer in terms of what it is that you're doing and how you're going through some of these views. If I go into the next view, my Harrington's filter probably will stay alive. Indeed, it is retained. So as you can see, it retains the filter on Harrington's and takes me to another view where this particular view is more graphical. I can collapse my report menu and make it a full screen if I wanted to. And this is drillable, so I can come in and drill on the graph and see how this is being sold within certain time frames. I can run yet another view where, again, Harrington's is still being filtered on Harrington's, and I can see a product, a profile on Harrington's sales. I can see how they're doing in terms of margin, how they're hitting sales versus their plan. I can see their number both graphically and in data format as well. And indeed, there's my Harrington's filter, which matches the filter that I have up here. If I change this on the fly to any other account, such as maybe Monolese distributors, we'll go ahead and select them, and then go ahead and select Get Report. So now I've changed the report to another customer. And I can just tell by looking at the graph that it's indeed a different customer. And if we scroll down, we can see that the filter here is changed to Monolese. So now I'm actually looking at the data for a different customer as I would expect I would. Okay. And again, I can collapse that left frame menu if I want to go ahead and make this available as needed.
All conference participants can be heard.
Any questions about any of this? Any questions at all?
Hi, Adam. It's Linda at Her Foods.
Hello.
Hear me?
Hello, how are you?
Good. I have a question about the measures. The measure at the top, it seems like it can only be one measure at a time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is actually correct. That's built more for simple reports. Even though the report may have more than one measure on it, it could be like typically it's driven to one measure within that report. So if you were to change that, it may not change the entire report, but it could definitely change whatever measure you have in there that's parameterized for that change. Yep. Yeah, we didn't want to get too complicated with that. And then with the view, obviously you can change the measure however you would within Viewer. So normally that's done for the report. So if I go back into my reporting services report, as you can see, this measure net sales. So now I'm just actually looking at net sales, and it's being shown here as opposed to gross sales, which is all this particular report has in it. You might have a report otherwise that have both sales and units, and so whatever you would change here would only reflect, obviously, for that particular portion of the report. So if I were to change that to gross sales, then just that one column would change within that report. So that's kind of how that would work, and normally it would just drive one measure. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, well, if there's no further questions, I want to thank everyone for their time today. We'll be getting a new schedule out for the upcoming Insight programs that for the next couple of months. So look for that on the Sylvan website. And, well, I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everyone.